Good evening. This is Blacklight on Sports. I'm Dr. Mitchell-Palmermcdonald,
I'm Charles Hallman.
and this evening's guest is a Northsider, um, basketball legend, um, and political activist, Mr. Brett McNeal. Brett, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you all having me.
Yeah. You can start by just talking about your journey, growing up in Minneapolis and how that has impacted the things that you're doing today. You're currently assistant athletic director for
District
Minneapolis
level,
Public, at
correct.
district level
hmm
for the Minneapolis Public Schools, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So talk about your experiences that have helped you, get to what you're doing or lead you to what you're doing now.
I've when asked that question in the past, right, I've always answered that as I've come full circle,
Hmm.
right? So when we were growing up, we talked about this a little bit. We did everything, and I think what blessed me is I lived across the street from North Commons Park,
Okay.
so I was able to participate in every sport, right? And then in my family, education and academics was a huge, to create a soft answer around that. I was the first family member in
Mm.
7 generations to earn a degree.
Okay.
And so, because I had no commons across the street, I played broom ball, football, basketball, baseball, ran track,
Hmm.
any sport they offered. And so that was really my groundbreaking into, and I credit the Michael Tally Tates, the
Hmm.
Dennis Howards, the Johnny Hunters, the Pettis family,
Yes.
the Williams family, Jeffrey and Arthur,
Hmm.
Marky and Billy Smith, right, the Wright brothers. That kind of was my crew.
Yeah.
You know,
Naming some stuff.
well, those were the folks that I kind of honed my skills on. And then as I got to middle school, that's when I was really introduced to the hospitality house, right? The great
Hmm.
Trump editor, Little
Oh yeah.
Drivers. And that's where
Yeah.
I met one of my arch rivals and best friends, Doug Carter,
Okay.
Okay.
right? And so between Billy Ross, Doug Carter, Tony Adams, Bobby Walker, that was another place that we went to really hone our skills.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was farther north, I would go to Jerry Gamble's where I had the Randy Hargis from the Hargis family,
Yes.
right? The Derek Nelsons,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I was kind of blessed to be able to move between three places and got exposed to traveling sports,
Hmm.
right? And so by the time I got to high school, through Jerry Gamble's and this guy named Jeff Smith, we had probably traveled to almost every state except seven to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Now, originally I was with the McCray,
Hmm.
so that's the first African American traveling group.
Yeah.
I was part of them.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Jerry Gamble's, we were able to go more because there was more money. Had this young guy named Jeff Smith, I think it was 27, and he took
Mm.
us everywhere. And so, as a great baseball player, I played first base and I pitched. Then baseball died,
Mm.
right? And to be honest, with football, I found out I was too little and couldn't take a hit. So I don't care how good of a quarterback or wide receiver I was, you can tackle me, but you ain't hitting me. That ain't happening. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and like every sport, when you start to hone it
Mm.
and find the one you like, right, you start learning those nuances. And for me, I just couldn't take a hit, so I was done with football, and I basketball became my ticket. So between academics and basketball, I had set in my mind I need to get to college, and that was my ticket to get there. And so I had a group of guys. I tell the story all the time. Doug Carter and I would fight every day, but we were best of friends, and people couldn't figure that out.
Hmm.
And so when we got to high school at North, we wanted to carry on the tradition that North had at that time in the realm of basketball. And then we went through the Summa Tech program, which was high science and math technology. And that was my ticket to the rest of the world. Like I needed to earn a scholarship, which I did.
Hmm.
Found my way to Western Kentucky with Clem Haskins.
Hmm.
And then 1 year with him, he decided to come back home. I'm like, I ain't coming back to Minnesota. I was running from Minnesota basketball at University of Minnesota. They had
Did
some
he want you to come
programs.
back?
Oh yeah, we had a lot of conversations. I'm like,
Okay.
Clem, man, shoot, y'all under sanctions. I ain't going back to that. No, no. And so we remain friends this day. But I was really fortunate to have him, Dwayne Casey,
Hmm.
this guy named Bobby Bowman, and Evans to really introduce me to college basketball and then set my sights on what professional basketball looked like. And also was my ticket to earn that degree because I, like most families, we just didn't have those resources. We didn't
Yes.
have that money. And so I was able to do that. My mother got sick. I came home because I had no intention of coming back home. And I ended up in the politics. Now, that's a weird story because I started off as a community organizer in Sumner Olson projects under Mona Modi. And I was at all these meetings and I ran into Jackie Holmes at that time, who was a city council member. And she was looking to make a change and she wanted me to work for her. And I told her no. I don't want nothing to do with politics. I have no desire to do politics. Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
And it was between her and Mona that said, Brett, we know your love of Minneapolis and North Minneapolis in particular. So you could help the community better if you took that job. And they were right. And that's where I learned politics. And I've been pushing that. Every young kid out of college or just every young kid, if you want to know how this city works, go work for a political office. I don't care if it's a representative, a congressman, senator, or your local city council, because you get a chance to really understand how the city works, how it ticks. And at the city council level, it's the thing that touches you the most.
Yeah.
So I was active with school board politics. I was active with Minneapolis Park Board politics and helped a lot of people get elected in that fashion. So I've always maintained that. And then from there, I moved into human resources and I learned policies and rules and what govern the things that we do. And after about a 20-year stint in that area, I found myself back in athletics. When Trent Tucker took over as a district athletic director and requested that I come and help him over at Edison High School. And you know the history there.
Yeah.
Edison wasn't accepting of black folks. So I looked at Trent and said, what am I doing at Edison? And then I got over there, and I knew quite a few of the kids over there. So they welcomed me in with open arms. I mean, I still had to go through some challenges as an AD, but for the most part, it was one of the best experiences for me as an introduction back into this world of athletics and AD. And then I had a stint of coaching at North High School. And so I did 7 years of coaching with Reggie Perkins and Wayne Lott at North High School. I thought we had a really successful couple years together in that area. But when I became an AD, I realized this was my lit niche.
Okay.
I knew I was home. It was easy for me. I understood athletics. I had the background. I understand the policies, rules, bylaws, and all those things. And, I think the benefit of athletics, and particularly school-based athletics, is it's just an extra educational platform, right, to help kids understand lifelong lessons. Right? So through coaching, I could teach those soft and some hard skills about what they need to do to make it right, in every day because they're going through so much. And I think that I was successful enough in my coaching career to really help the kids understand what people expect of them. So I'm home. This is what I like to do. This is what I love to do because I can still do the politics. I can still do the community advocacy role. But more importantly, I can still help young people become great young men and women, which is also what I receive from those mentors and those people that I mentioned earlier, some of those people that have helped me.
Yeah. How go back to coaching at North, like you end up back at North, after you played there. Now, what was that feeling like?
Well, historically, we never won a state championship.
Right.
We took second. We lost to the great teams of White Bear Lake.
Yep.
Arguably, we thought we were the better team, but those two nights they were.
Oh, yeah,
so
I agree.
I remember the backdrop of that. I was at a game because I would go back and watch North, and I'm at this game. Willie Jett's coaching, and I'm sitting there going, I know Willie Jett can coach, right? I'm sorry, I know Willie Jett can coach, and it wasn't his coaching. What I said to myself was he just doesn't know the players. And I tell people nothing against any Minneapolis public schools, but you have to be in this position to appreciate what I'm about to say. If you can coach at North, you can coach anywhere. And I've been in a lot of gyms, suburban gyms, St. Paul gyms. At North, you coach against everybody in the gym. You coach against your old bench. You coach against your own scores table. You coach against sometimes other officials. You coach against the folks sitting on the stands across. I mean, it's just a fact because every basketball is part of their DNA. So everybody knows basketball, and everyone needs to say something. And I was talking to some parents, and they were kind of being that person, but I thought they were a little critical. So I kind of snapped off. I'm like, man, leave that man alone. I'm trying to figure out why that kid, and that kid ain't in the floor, because if those two kids are on the court. And I was like, what do you know about basketball? I said, well, what do you mean? I know a little bit. And they said, what do you know about coaching? I said, well, here's what I do know. I know which kids had the heart to deal with certain level of games, right? If I didn't even know their talent, he gully. Like, he ain't gonna run from this fight. He need to be on the floor. That was the conversation. Well, then Willie Jet calls me out of the blue. Hey, man, I'm stepping down, Brett. He was like, loved coaching. I want to get into administration. Your name came up. I think you'd be a great guy to take over the program. And this is what got me. He said, I just think you know this community better than me. And hearing that just rung a bell to me. And so I took the interview, and I remember saying this to the panel of 13. First of all, if you hire me, I'm bringing Reggie Perkins, right? So you're going to have two head coaches, because I felt like he was head coach. And when I talked to Reggie, he said, man, I said the same thing. I told him, if you hire me, I'm bringing Brett. And then the second thing I told him was, I'll take that team to the state tournament the first year, and if I don't fire you, that's a guarantee. I'll take that team to the state tournament my very first year. If I don't do it, fire me. It just came out. People say I was cocky. It just came out. I believed in those kids. I believed in what Willie Jett had put together. And I also agree with him. He just didn't know the players. And sure enough, when I got there, it was home. Mike Favors was my principal. I graduated him. He understood the academic side and the education side. He also understood athletics. He's an NCAA Hall of Famer. I had the families because they were the same families that raised me. Right? It was bizarre because I was literally talking to parents who I was in the hospital in some cases where their child was born, and I'm coaching their children. And they were the same ones that had me at Hospitality House, Jerry Gams, or North Commons, or Willard.
Yeah.
And so, everything lined up. I knew the teachers, right? And I knew the coaching staff. And so it was a refreshing welcome home. And when we went to that state tournament that first year, it was a great disappointment because we took third. But I said to them, we're going to win this next year. I don't care what nobody say. And we did.
Yeah.
And so my second year in that spot, we took second. We took first in the state tournament. And that was a record, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, no coach had ever done that in those 2 years. I need to say this because people downplay the coaching. No Mr. Basketball has ever won a state tournament, and no Mr. Basketball has ever won a state tournament at Alma Mater. Now, what most people don't know is when I left, I had a 78% winning record, which was the most a coach has done in their first 7 years ever. Those are facts.
I didn't realize it was 7 years.
I was there from 01, it was 6 years. I was there from 01 to 07.
Okay.
And I only stepped down because I'd always preached that parents need to be at the games. And by that last year, my kids were high school students, and I needed to be a parent.
Right.
And they weren't going to North. So I stepped down to be parent. And the kids accepted that. Like, nah, coach, we get it. Because you've preached that for years. Right? Be a dad, be a mom to your own children. And I can still support the program, but I need to support my children.
Okay.
Otherwise, I probably would have still been coaching at North. I wouldn't. They would have to run me up out of there. Right? You cut me. I'm still bleeding blue.
Now you was very successful as a player at North. What did Clem Haskins convinced you to go to Western Kentucky? Obviously, he left to come to Minnesota, but what did he say to you to convince you that was the place that you should go? Besides getting a scholarship, that you should go and play basketball.
Well, I think I'm gonna answer that question real quickly and short, and then I'm gonna give you the backdrop on that. I didn't have anybody offer me scholarships. At least that's what I thought at the time. Right? You always hear the rumors about people offering scholarships, but the coaches don't give them to you.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that to be true, but I just didn't have offers. And I remember we went to the camp in Rensselaer, Indiana. And here's a long, funny story. So me and Tony, Doug, Seth, this guy named Mark Sombrowitz from Mounds View, And we were doing what kids do. We were out of our room after hours.
Mm-hmm.
And this big old dude, I mean, he's 6'6", 235 pounds. Hey, kids, y'all need to be in your room. And Tony's behind, screaming back, man, you can't tell us what to do. And he took off. Now, I'm talking about Brian, the late Brian Asbury, who I played with at Western. I didn't realize he was that fast. Man, by the time we got to the room and slammed that door, he hit that door so hard he knocked it off the hinges. That's how fast it was. He made us run all night. And I finally said, dude, man, I'm trying to get a scholarship. I'm gonna be tired tomorrow. I need to get out here and play, man. You got to run all night. He said, should have had y'all in the room. So then I said, man, you need to come see us play. Just come see us play. And sure enough, he came and saw us, and he believed in me and the guys. And so he reached out to Clem and Casey. And when they came to watch me play, that was my first interaction with them, meaning I got a letter from Western.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I proceeded to make the All-Star camp that year.
Mm-hmm.
The first year we went, this is the second year, the first year we went, they gave me a number 232. And me and Doug, we were pissed because this is how they talk to you. 232, court 4. So, hey man, my name is Brett, man. 232. If you don't get your butt on court, my name is Brett. So that bothered me, right? And so we came back, we said, no, you're going to know my name before I leave here. And sure enough, they knew our names. You know, Doug Carter, Brett McNeal. We were ranked in like the top 100 or top 25 kids in the state. I made the All-Star team. And I remember my mom called me before we got home, and she said, you're not going to believe this, but you have a ton of letters. And I'm thinking, I ain't really talked to nobody. And then I got home, and she had a garbage bag of letters. And I remember us throwing those on the floor, and I was, in So that's how I was kind of discovered through Brian Asbury. Tellis Frank was there, so I had met him. But that was my first connection with Clem.
Okay.
And then, but it was the visits that sold my family. Right. So my stepdad at the time was real huge on blackness. He was real huge on taking care of his kids. And he was real good on truth. He didn't want no handouts. And so coaches would come and they would lie. They're recruiting. Oh, no, we're only recruiting you. We're recruiting. They would do stuff like that. Not all, but some. And then I really wanted to go to DePaul or Marquette. That was where I wanted my, and my dad was like, I don't think you need to do that. Well, Clem and Casey come in. And I think at that time, Casey was 27. And they walked in with Hugo Boss. I don't know what other suit they had on in a Mercedes outside. Well, I ain't seen no black men dressed like that educational wise. We were still wearing suits with patches on the elbows. That was a GQ magazine for me, right? So, I was pretty impressed. But it was the conversation around education and basketball that sold it, because they were big on that. And their recruiting ability. And I remember my dad asked a question, who else are you recruiting? And I'll never forget this. Clem say, well, I'm just going to be honest. I'm recruiting him, the player of the year out of Baltimore, Maryland, which was Kirk Lee, the number 1 JUCO player, which was Ray Swager, and the top 5th player guard out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And that was this cat named Keith Licklider. So he ain't going to get no position. He got to earn it. And my dad loved that. But I was still stuck on default. My dad loved that. And I was like, okay, Western. And so then the next morning, my dad worked in the railroad. So he would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but he left a paper on the table with the letter of intent that DePaul had left. And when I picked it up, it said, DePaul signs New York phenom, Rod Strickland.
Wow.
And I said, man, they lied to me. They said they was only recruiting me. And so then we started having conversations with Western Kentucky and Clem. And then when he told me he had signed the people he signed, Mr. Basketball of Cincinnati, Mr. Basketball of Kentucky, runner-up out of Kentucky, Mr. Basketball of Minnesota, top 5 in Indiana, player of the year, I said, I'm going to Western. And after I signed, the poll came out, and we were ranked 8th in the country. It was over. I knew I found the right school.
How was your first year there?
Brutal. I talk about this and I teach this. It doesn't matter if you go Division 1, 2, or 3, even JUCO. Every time you go up a level, there's stuff to learn,
Mhm.
right? And so, I tell these stories. It's interesting you asked. I was just sharing this. My roommate was Kirk Lee, and we would have, man, I think we signed at the wrong school. Because we walked, first of all, it's a college campus. So in the summertime, it's ghost. I remember calling my mom, they told me we was running across. I said, I'm in the West. I said, Mom, I'm at the wrong school. Ain't nobody down here. Right. And then one school called me and everybody come on back. But we went to the gym for just a pickup game, and they had a rule in there, no fouls. Minneapolis had that
Oh
rule,
my
but it's
goodness,
not
yeah,
really a rule, right?
yeah,
And
but
when I
yeah.
say that, when I tell you the story, so our practice gym was down these stairs, and we're peeking down these stairs, and the out of bounds line is the table, and the wall is right there. Man, me and Kirk sat there and watched them dudes get thrown into the wall. And game, they only went to 7. Game was over. They're coming out. They're bleeding. Lips busted. I said, man, I ain't doing that. We went down to the local park. I said, man, I ain't doing that. I'm thinking that's just them in summer ball until practice started. And I ain't gonna tell everything, but it wasn't too far from practice. Wasn't too far from that gym. Clem believes in physical basketball. Like, well, the rules were different back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was brutal, man. And I was 155 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I had never lifted a weight in my life. So coming off screens, trying to get around screens, I was struggling. It was brutal, man. And, the physicality of the game,
Mm-hmm.
being on the floor with guys that could pass the ball, like balls in the spot before you get there. I
Mm-hmm.
never played at that with that level.
Mhm.
Guys that are 6'11, 6'10, 6'9, extremely athletic. I didn't have that in Minnesota. So that was a huge adjustment for me. And I needed that year. If I could look back, I probably should have redshirted.
Mm-hmm.
But there were times I just wanted to come home. For one, I was 800 miles away from home. I was there for 5 years. Not one time did my family come down and see me play in that gym because they just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we could probably talk about this later, but I'm a Hall of Famer there. When I left my credential, I was in the top 3 in 3 categories, but they never seen that. And so that's when I really learned to appreciate it. If kids can make it away from home that first year, they can survive anywhere. Because if you look up now, there's so many kids, they don't want to leave. And then when
Yeah.
they do leave, they come back with their tail between their legs.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that speaks a lot to where those kids at, because it is brutal, right? You're trying to figure out how to be a man or a woman, right? And you have all these things coming at you that you never really experienced at home, right? Because there's so many different protections. And at least when I grew up, our community was super tight, super protective. So even with the things going on, I ran into so many things on the college campus that I just had never experienced. And you're trying to navigate that. So my first year was brutal. And there were times when I did really want to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at my split-in, and I remember receiving a letter from my brother Bronson's. And the one little line kept me there. He said, if anybody else can do it, you can. Don't come home. Because I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that letter that came at the right time. I believe that was, God divine sent, because me and Kirk had made a decision we're leaving. And I got that letter. And then shortly after that, he got another letter from his brother who had played at Xavier. And we ended up staying. But it was a brutal game. Kids were breaking jaws during games, busting lips and getting stitched up with no, stuff like that I hadn't seen before. Checking themselves in the game. Clarence Martin, 6'9". He busts his chin with an elbow. He come out, stitch him up. Doc stick me up. I'm sitting underneath the bench. He's standing in front of me. Doc stitching him up. No anesthetic or nothing. He get done. He go check in the game. Like, who does that, right? But now we're talking about Clarence Martin. 6'9", played football. He grown man. Even Clem will say that. He passed away. I love him because he was one of our father figures. And he checked himself in. Man, he go and break Vincey's jaw, stands over him. Now that's a foul with some other specific rate foul. Dude, and we paid him the next time we paid him, UAB, his jaw was strapped. I wasn't used to that. Like, this ain't basketball. These folks
Oh
is
man.
brutal out here, right?
Oh man.
So yeah, that was my first year, but I
Man.
stayed. I learned a lot. I had to hit the weights. I went from 155 to 185
Mm-hmm.
in about 3 months. You know, they had to change my diet because my metabolism was so high.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I learned the beauty of weights,
Mhm.
right, and how it can affect your game. I became stronger, faster, and then I just had to learn the game. You know, McNary, when I graduated, he was second in their history of assists. But I never had a guy that knew exactly where you were. I got hit in the head so many times with him just throwing me a pass. I just wasn't expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn that, you know,
Yeah.
anticipate his passes, you know, when, where, and how to come off a good screen. Because, you know, in high school, kids don't set good screens,
Mhm.
you know. So it was a lot of learning. But they taught us basketball. Clem, Dwayne Casey taught us how to play. So we had a good staff
Mhm.
that did a good job of that. And what I appreciate about that is in high school, that's what Robin Ingram did for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
when I was a sophomore, I felt like I was one of the
Mm-hmm.
top players and should have been starting for North.
Right.
Doug was. I wasn't.
Yep, I remember. Yeah.
And it was Robin Ingram. I credit a lot of my
Yeah.
coaching and understanding to Robin. Like, he was a fantastic, underrated, not
Mhm.
always recognized coach.
Yes.
Like, this dude was huge. He was won
Yes.
3 state championships before Larry did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, everybody talks about Larry. Love Larry. But I'm not gonna let you overlook Robin Ingram.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He did it first,
Mhm.
right, at North. But I was sitting at the bench and he would say something like, "You think you should be playing?" I said, "Man, you know I should be playing." He said, "What they doing out there?" And I go, "Man, I don't know." That's why you ain't playing. That was Robin, right? So then I'm ready now. The next time you say, "What they doing out there?" I say, "Man, I got you 2 on press." He said, "Okay, how you gonna break it?" I was like, "Man, I don't know." That's why you ain't out there. Right. Now I'm just talking to him, not really paying. So now I'm ready. We'll do this. And through that process, so then I would start talking to him, "Man, why aren't we doing this? We should be doing a 2-2-1. Why are we doing this?" And he said, "I think you're ready to play." I said, "Man, I've been ready." But Robin Ingram, that was his coaching. Right? He just
Mhm.
talked you through stuff to
Mhm.
make sure you were his big deal was mental preparation. And he was one of the first coaches that encouraged us to golf. He said, if you learn how to golf, it'll mentally prepare you, be a better basketball player. But it wasn't Queen that coached me. It was Robin Ingram. And I tell people all the time,
Mhm.
no disrespect to Queen and his legacy, but my coach was Robin Ingram. And I remember we had lost the South my junior year, and we were not predicted to go to state. Couldn't handle Russell Smith.
Oh yeah, your sophomore year. Yep.
Yeah, couldn't handle Russell Smith and
Curtis
Travis.
Travis. Yeah.
They was killing us.
Mhm.
But I played against Russell at Hospitality House. I was quicker and longer than Hicks, and Hicks didn't play no D. And I knew I should be out there. And I never forget when Queen is how Queen talk. And as I was, another thing that slipped out, as I was going back, about time. And they start laughing. They be like, "Didn't you say about time?" And of course, I got in there and I was able to hold Russell bound, and we beat them, and we made it to state, and that was really
Yeah,
the
I
kickoff
remember
of my
that game
career.
at the Minneapolis Auditorium
Yeah,
because South was supposed to go.
yeah,
Everybody had picked them to go, and y'all went there because that was my senior year. That was
yeah.
'83. And
They had a good team.
yeah, and you guys practiced at St. Paul Central. I remember that
Yep.
because my dad said we're going to the practice. And I'm still St. Paul Central. I'm gonna go look at these dudes. And my dad was like, "We all brothers, man. You better come on over here." And he got me over there, and I watched y'all. I watched y'all practice with my dad.
Yeah, but I
And
learned that through Ingram too. I was, man, why ain't you telling Queen what to do? You should be coaching.
Mhm.
Again, learning stuff from Ingram. He the head coach, man. I'm assistant, and that taught me how to be an assistant. Right?
mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I get it now, right? Because most people want to be head coaches, but you need to learn how to be an assistant.
Mhm.
Right? He in charge, right? She in charge. Help
Mm-hmm.
them be great. That's really your job.
Yeah.
And I learned also that from Robert Ingram. He really kept them boundaries. My job is to assist him to be good. He the head coach, and you need to learn how to respect that. And I just never forgot that.
Man, that's interesting. You've already talked a little bit about your playing career. You played a little bit you played a little bit back as a sophomore, and you already talked about how you felt about that. But this is what I noticed when I came back from school, and you all played Central at North. you look like a completely different person. I think you had grown a couple of inches, and then all of a sudden, and I remember this vividly. You you seemingly just went up and dunked the ball, and then I just remember, I kid you not, my dad looked at me and said, he said, dude, he said, that's Mr. Basketball next year. I was, what are you talking about? I said, all he did was dunk the ball. He said, you never listen. But you wait and see. But how was that development between from your sophomore year to, like, junior, and then of course senior year it was.
Well, this is true,
Mm-hmm.
and I coach this way, and I try to teach it. You always teach a kid how to play guard because you never know when they're gonna grow. I went from 5'10" to 6'3"
Mm-hmm.
over that summer, and I'll never forget that. My knees would hurt all the time. I had this Osgood-Schlatter. Is you have these growth spurts, and so I shot up in size.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a contributive feel. Um, at the university at the time, they had a camp. I remember going to this camp, and what I loved about the camp, you did the drills. It was old school. You did drills, and then you played after. I don't know if they still do now. Now I go to camp, they just throw the ball out there, everybody run down the floor. But basic skills kids need to work on. And when it was over, he gave me this sheet of a ranking. You're a good player, and they would rank passing, rebounding, dribbling, shooting, and it was very generic, right? Poor, good, better, excellent, or something like that. And then he had comments, and he would say, "You are a good player. You could be a great player if you learn how to dribble with your right hand. Basically get a right hand because I was left hand
Mm-hmm.
dominant." And I remember taking that over the summer, and with this growth spurt, I just started working on my right hand. Just all, I always had a ball. I was always dribbling, and I started shooting with my right hand, doing everything with my right hand. And again, with Rob and Ingram teaching me how to play, I began to think the game. It wasn't,
Okay.
Basketball is a thinking game. Yeah, you need some skills and some God given talent, but if anything taught us Larry Bird, who did not have that,
Mm-hmm.
you could be a great player if you can think the game. And that's why I contribute a lot of my coaching and playing and development after the Michael Talley Tates and those guys to a Robert Ingram. Because once I got to high school, I was literally under his tutelage
Mm-hmm.
because he had me my freshman year, my sophomore year, and then again as my junior and senior. And so he taught me how to think and then use my strength to my I wasn't fast, I wasn't quick, I didn't jump high, but I could anticipate where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
And to be good, you got to really figure that out. Like, there's only so many places a person can go on the floor. And if you played as much as I did, there's only so they're going to back screen. So you kind of know if you've been playing long enough, you kind of know where to be.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that early. And so I try to take advantage of that, right? And that was what is this person's strength? Can they shoot? Can they dribble? Can they get their own shot? Do they know how to set a screen? Do they know how to come off a screen? Where are they going? Can I beat them there? And that's really what's my development over that years. And so then that became leadership. Like, I could tell people where to go and what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, with the guys that I played with, me and my brother, Doug, Tony, a lot of those guys we grew up with, they kind of anointed me, because of what happened that sophomore year when I came into Form 1. They're like, God,
Mm-hmm.
this kid can really play. But I wasn't trying to usurp their authority,
Right.
right? They were the top dogs. I was just I'm a filler,
Yeah.
right? And so they kind of anointed me as their leader, and I accepted that, right? I knew what Bronson could do. I knew what Doug can do. I knew what Coleman can do. I knew, I know your strengths. Let me get you in a position for your strengths. And that's what I try to do during that time. And I think that made a difference because I didn't shoot the ball a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I just tried to get the people in a position where they looked the best at what they did. And quite honestly, Doug teased me now because he said, "Man, you stole my Mr. Basketball from me." And I said, "Yeah, because all you want to do is shoot." Right? And we ran and gun. And even other people say, "Man, y'all greedy, all y'all do is shoot." And what they didn't realize, that was really our philosophy. Man, shoot the ball, shoot. You can take him, anybody gonna stop you. Just make the shots
Yeah.
right, make the shots right. But I'm gonna tell this little secret. I only heard one other person say that. Bernard King, I heard him say it nationally, but this is some of the stuff that Ingram taught me, right? He would say stuff like, you know, you could easily average 32 points a game. Like, I don't shoot that much. And this is what he said. Don't you know math? He said, well, there's 4 quarters, right? He said, can you make 8 points in 4 quarters? I said, man, that's easy. He said, okay, can you make 4 baskets? Well, I never thought about it that way. We didn't have a 3-pointer, so 4 baskets was 8 points. I said, I can make 4 baskets. So he focused me to stop thinking about points and think more about baskets. Right. So can you get a layup? Can you make 2 free throws? Can you make a mid range? And can you steal the ball to get a layup? He said, once you get 4 baskets, you don't have to shoot no more that quarter. Well, now I can pass the ball. Well, okay. I start passing the ball once I got my 4 back, because I felt like there wasn't a guy that could guard me.
Right.
So I could score at will. I just need 4 baskets. Now I can make sure Bronson gets his. I can make sure Doug gets his. So now I'm scoring, but I'm also getting assists. And then I said, well, man, time's running out. I need a basket. So now I got to get the ball. I learned how to steal the ball. Now my skills are increasing, right? And so Doug would shoot the ball all the time. He had 27 points. And Lucas said, hey, man, how does Stu get 26 points? He even shoot the ball. But his percentage was 19. My percentage might be 30. Right? So I had a better percentage. I said, yeah, well, you helped me. I said, you and Queen helped me because Queen never disciplined you. You just shot the ball and I had to do everything else, right? That's our running joke as buddies. But they also taught me coaching. So I coached that way with stats. Like, you got to know your percentages. You got to know your shoot. You don't have to shoot the ball every time. Just make the shot. So then I would go back to the gym and just really work on my shooting. Mid-range, short corner. I call long corner, but the 3-pointer. You just start working on those shots. But I knew my strengths. I wasn't a 3-point shooter at that time, but I could get to my spot in the mid-range. And so I said, if I need a basket, I can do that. I can shoot the gap and make a steal. I can anticipate so I had a well-rounded game where most kids think I just need to shoot. And I think that, with my leadership, probably was the thing that helped me win Mr. Basketball at that time. But it really was Ingram that taught me that little method. You only need 4 baskets. And when I coached, I taught that. I had kids that could average 32 points a game. And I said to them, look, man, I just need 16, 18 points from y'all. That's all I need. You don't need 32. I can get you a scholarship with that because now you're going to have to do some other stuff. And literally, they bought into it, thank God. And a lot of those kids that I coached went on to play Division I and professional basketball, but they understood that team concept, to be a well-rounded athlete. And then when you get your shot or you're on a team where they want you to score 32, you still have the ability to do that. But Ingram taught me that as a sophomore.
Man,
Robin Ingram taught me as a sophomore. Can't you do math? I said, I could do math. He said, well, can you make 4 baskets? I said, man, I can make 4 baskets. Quit playing. And so he would do this. Well, show me. And at that time, I was playing sophomore. And I would go out there and score 32, 24 points. I remember little Damien, who used to be in the coach staff, I would say, call and said, man, this dude just shot 12 from 12 for the field, or he didn't shot 11 for 12 free throws. I said, man, he should not be playing sophomore. He need to be playing on the varsity team, because I was just murdering. And that's what Ingram would say. Well, if you think he'd be playing varsity, then show us. So I would play 2 quarters as a sophomore at the sophomore level.
Yeah.
I was averaging 28, 30 points. And then I'd have to leave and go sit on the bench, go across town and sit on the bench.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I hate that.
Because the way the schedule.
You should let me score them 40-some points.
Yeah.
If you'll have me go over here sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
But Damien would be over there, and then he would drive me back, or somebody drive me back. And I said, man, this dude is killing it. He don't need to be playing sophomore. He don't need to be playing sophomore. But it was Robin that Coach Ingram taught me all that. He's a phenomenal coach and a great man. And I've tried to get him to be a High State Hall of Famer, and every time I present the name, he'll go, man, take my name out of there. I don't need that. I coach for the kids, and I just love him for that.
Yeah.
He never coached for Robin Ingram. It was always about the kids.
I don't think I ever quoted him, because he always sent me to the players whenever I would go to a game. He was like, I didn't win the game.
I love him for that. He is never about Robin Ingram. He's a true high school basketball coach.
Man.
Yeah, he is. It was Robin Ingram and not Queen.
Now, through your career, what skills did you learn that helped you, with the position you have now?
All of them, like I say,
Mhm.
in basketball, particularly basketball, it's just another platform. Like I gave you some of those skills. He taught me how to be a team player,
Mhm.
right? But still be an individual great.
Mhm.
Like literally he taught me that, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm a team on my job. Okay, I'm going to try to figure out what are your strengths,
Mhm.
right? What are your strengths on your job? And I'm going to help you do that. And I know mine, and I'll try to do that as well. But what is our goal? Let's try to accomplish that goal. And that's still athletics,
Mhm.
right? And then how can I shine in my own way, right? So that's one of the skills that I
Mhm.
learned through sports. And then another thing is there's always something to learn, right? So when I first went to Western and played, I remember my roommate said to me, "Man, I'm so tired of you getting your head busted." He said, "Let me take you to the gym and show you how to play." And I say that to say that Minnesota basketball is here,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had great players, and other states is here.
Mhm.
And people call me a hater when I say, well, here's my best example. I came out here, Mr. Basketball. When I went to that college campus, I would blow by you, but you catch my stuff on the backboard.
Mhm.
And I couldn't figure it out and didn't even know he was there. Again, because I
Mhm.
hadn't played against 6'11, 6'10 cats that can jump across the lane
Mm-hmm.
and time your shot. We don't have those players here.
Mhm.
We don't. We don't. We don't have a 6'8 beast
Yeah.
that can just post you and turn around and dunk, other than Royston, who I seen do that. Like he was just way above. When I watched him play in high school, he was the stuff that I saw in other states.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know how to coach Royston because he was an unknown phenom. And we've had other players like that. I think Zach was like that played at Columbia Heights. I think Suggs is like that. Like they were just way above us, and they were gully, right? But so he would say to me, "Man, let me can I just take you to the gym and show you how to play?" So that he took me to the gym. He showed me the teardrop. He showed me the soft. I didn't have that tool in my toolbox. McNeal showed me how to pass. Right here's as much as Bull tried to teach me to bounce pass, it wasn't until I got in the gym with those players. McNeal showed me how to play that bounce pass, how to anticipate that pass and where to go. That was the skill I had to learn. So how did that transfer now? There are things I don't know, and I'm comfortable with that. And so if you're willing to teach me that, I'm open for that, right?
Mhm.
I've been in key leadership positions where people are unwilling to be taught. And I'm looking at them like, but you don't know. I'm just trying to help, man. But those little lessons like that are some of the things I learned. I don't know everything, and I'm really looking for somebody to help teach me. The other thing is in basketball or other sports, I think that we're used to being criticized, right?
Mhm.
You like the coaches just on you. They
Mhm.
want you better, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I'm able to accept criticism, right? Okay, I did something in my job that you didn't like. Where most people fold, man, he don't like me or she don't like me, or man, all they do is criticize. I need a pat on the back. I don't. Okay, I accept it, right?
Mhm.
You know, everybody has an opinion. Oh, Brett should know I'm Mr. Basketball. Someone said, oh, he wasn't that good. Oh, who was better? Who was the best player? Well, everybody has an opinion, right?
Mhm.
And I accept that, right? So I get into my job, and particularly in politics, everybody has an opinion.
Mhm.
So you kind of really have to be able to handle that. Like, okay, that's just their opinion. I'm not upset about that. Everybody has a right to their opinion. Let's keep it moving. So there are so many little nuggets like that that I think sports have taught me how to live in this everyday world, right? How to win and how to lose gracefully. Like we talk about that. I laugh about being second twice to White Bear Lake.
Mhm.
Like that doesn't bother me, right? I'm not looking to blame Queen. I'm not looking to blame. What I tell people is Queen wasn't playing,
Mhm.
right? And if we've been with Queen that long and everybody knows he wasn't a good coach,
Mhm.
then why are we blaming him? I mean, I tell people, well, okay, if you believe that, well, then why are you blaming him? If you know he wasn't a good coach, if you said, I know he's not a good coach, I've never said anybody say that, but he ain't playing. I'm on the floor missing layups and jump shots. He's on the floor turning the ball over, right? You on the floor can't get a rebound. When are we going to look at the players and critique the players' inability to perform? I learned that this sports, right? You know, we're always looking at somebody else versus looking at myself or looking at that team. Like, you on my team, why are we dropping the ball? Why aren't you trying to be the best that you can be? Right. And that's what athletics taught me. There's a goal, right? You want to win a championship. You want to win Mr. Basketball. You want to become a legend. But then you have to put forth the work and effort to strive to be there. Well, to me, it's the same thing on the job. I'm an athletic director. I'm trying to be the best athletic director I can be. Period. I don't care what you thought some other athletic director looked like. I don't care if you think that that's a old coach's retirement job. This is a profession. I'm a master athletic administrator. I'm a certified master athletic administrator and a national organization. I'm trying to be the best athletic director I can be.
Yeah.
Everybody don't look at it that way. So I learned all of that through sports.
Man.
We earlier talked about rivalries.
Yeah, we did.
And we talked about, and you know, we've seen how sports has transformed or has transitioned over the decades. You've played it, you coached it, now you're administrative in it. But in your opinion, what happened to rivalries? Why we don't have the kind of rivalries that you remember, that we remember? Why they don't seem to exist today as they used to?
Well, I think, this is just Brett's opinion, there were a couple of things. One, I think safety is a big component to that. Right? When I grew up, and most of us are around, and it could be 10 degrees below zero. We got a game at 5 or 7 o'clock. Folks have took the day off, and they're lined up outside around the block to get into the 7 o'clock game. Well, you have to feel safe to do that. I don't think our communities feel safe to be standing outside. Right? So that's a big part of it. I think the other part of that is, at the time, we didn't have professional sports at the level that we have now, right? There wasn't Timberwolves.
True.
Right? They weren't competing for an NBA championship. We had the Vikings, who were way out in Bloomington at the time, right? And you kind of had the Twins, but baseball, I thought at the time, was dying in the inner city. So high school football and high school basketball was truly Friday nights. And so your community came out to really support that. The other thing is, there were more community schools. You had a city and all these different acronyms that were splitting up our communities, right? Central had a community, right? North had a community, South had a community, West. All these schools, those families went to those schools and they really supported those schools. And then finally, I think that basketball was on the up when I was playing back in the late 70s and early 80s, at least at high school level. And I believe, and I can talk more about this, but I'm just going to say it. Again, everybody has their opinion. This is mine. I thought that we had better coaches. And I thought that we had better student athletes that wanted to really learn how to play. And I'm saying it both ways. Because you can have a great coach, and you have kids that they say they want to be good, but they're not putting in that kind of work. Like, I know people didn't put the work in, and I did. I just know they did, right? But then I had Ingram and I had Queen, and I don't bite my tongue with that. Ingram coached me. It wasn't Queen, right? So I still think that exists, right? You have some coaches, quite frankly, I think need to retire or shouldn't have those jobs. And I just think our kids don't want to put forth the fundamental work that it needs to be good. And then finally, the nature of the game has changed, right? It's no longer fundamentally sounds more for entertainment. So most of our teams and the kids anyway want to really turn globetrotter start type basketball into basketball, right? So they lack a lot of fundamental skills. They lack a lot of understanding of the game, right? So they can't do a second, third, or fourth read. Well, that takes work. That they don't want to hit the weights, right? They don't want to run a mile or 2 miles. That's punishment. And then you have too many parent involvement that don't have a clue about what they're doing. And I think they're putting too much pressure on these kids in a sense that they're trying to live their life through those kids. Right? Let kids be kids. Like I'm a high school official. I coach summer football and basketball. And I can't tell you how many games I've refed of fourth and fifth graders where I'm looking at the parents saying, "Can you please stop and just let this kid learn how to play the game?" And see, I was blessed. My parents didn't have a clue about basketball. They didn't have a clue. So all they did was come and cheer. I could turn the ball 5 times. Good job, son. Right? They just cheered, right? And I told them before they passed, I appreciate y'all, right? And I tell my kids, man, I feel sorry for y'all, because I know the game. And so I have to be careful how I communicate with them, right? Do you want dad or do you want coach? I learned how to ask, like, do you want your dad or do you want your coach? Because if I move in a different space, I could kill them because I'm so hard as a player coach, right? Some days they say, "Man, Dad, we just need Dad." Great job, son. I did a great job, right? And then later on, Dad, can we just add coach? And then I'm in there. I'm in like, man, come on, man, you didn't did this. We need to work on this, So as a parent, I think parents need to be real sensitive to really understanding what that kid needs at that time. Before, during, after the game. And my first eye opener was my oldest son was playing as a ninth grader. And I'm just out there screaming, thinking I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And I remember him saying he was taking the ball on the sideline. I remember looking up and saying, "Dad, I can't play with you screaming like that." You talking about shocked. Like, oh my God, embarrassed? Woo! Right. But I love them for that. My kids, they're vocal. They know their voice and they have it. And in the middle of the game, he called me out. I shut my mouth too and learned how to do what my parents did. Good job. Right. And I think that's what kids need to learn their voices so they can. And I try to teach that when I was coaching. I need your child to have a voice. You're going to learn the minute you can stand up to your mom and your dad respectfully, tell them what you need and what you want from them, then I won't have no problem with you talking to a teacher or some other person that's handling you inappropriately. But a lot of our kids don't have a voice. They're hiding behind social media. And I think that sports is a great platform to help them find their voice and understand how to be that woman or child or young adult that they need to be. But yeah, that's my thought on that. It's just changed, right? We got kids going to schools across town. You got folks living in North Minneapolis going to school in Hopkins, right? And so you don't have that community. There's somewhat of a rival, but it's not the rival that we remember.
No.
And I've asked some of my same guys in St. Paul, like, man, what happened? They say the same thing. Man, it ain't the same.
No,
Johnson ain't the same.
No, Johnson isn't even the same. Central's not the same, and you have people. You just have people going everywhere.
Yeah.
And when me and Charles have talked about this, about the facilities. Before back then, before like kind of in our era, we see somebody go out to the suburbs and we'd be, he's going to a white school because they think the white school is better. But now, you go to Hopkins, there's 8 gyms, and you want to play some ball. Okay, and then you go back, I go back to Central High School where you can't get in. You can't even get in the gym.
Well, that's
type of thing.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because they hide behind the facilities, but to me, you kind of run for competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We had one gym.
Yeah.
There's 120 people in the gym vying for a job.
Now that's what. Yep. There were.
And that's real world. Right. You want a job, you put your resume in, man, there might be 300 resumes in there.
Yeah.
You have to figure out that resume to pop up to the top.
Yeah.
Now granted, somebody can help you get a foot in the door, you know somebody, they know somebody, but you still are competing. And that's why I don't think our kids want to compete anymore. It's easier to transfer to another school and be the star of that school and play. But I've always asked, are they getting better? That's my question. Okay, you've been at the school for 3 years. Demonstrate to me that you've gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you're playing. I'm glad you're playing, but are you getting better? Because couldn't you have stayed at that same school
Yeah.
and got better? Because we already know 98% of kids are not going to play at the next level.
Yep.
We already know that. So don't tell me because you went out there, you got seen, and now you get scared. That's a lie because I played and I coached and I talked to college coaches. I'm sorry to bust bubbles, but they ain't liking your game. So it
Yeah.
didn't matter where you at. You got to get better. And a lot of times, if you're in a gym with a lot of talent, the benefit of that is when I come to see Magic Johnson, I'm seeing Larry Bird and everybody else. And I think that's, to me, again, going back to the beauty about the rivalry, coaches can walk in the gym and there's 10 kids in the play on the field, on that court or field, that if they had the grades, they're going to get a scholarship. But more importantly, you might have another 12 on both teams sitting on the bench like, man, if he was at another team, we know, can we give him a scholarship too, right? We know that. But that's gone. Right? That's gone. So, iron sharpens iron. If you're not in the gym playing against the best of the best, you're just not getting better. That's a fact. Right. So somehow you got to find a way to do that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go to the gym, you still got to come to those gyms. You still got to go to those places. And I'm not talking about just pick a ball. I'm not talking about Harlem Globetrotter show off ball. I'm talking about that real grind that I was talking about, where there are no fouls, where you're bleeding when you leave, and you're still saying, man, good game, versus let me get my pistol and shoot you, or man, I don't like you no more, I'm getting ready to beat you up, right? That's what I mean. We don't have those student athletes in the numbers that we use. I can go to St. Paul Central and tug it out with any of those cats. And when we were done, man, I'm gonna see you next week.
Yeah.
That's just how much we love each other. We out there fist fighting, going crazy, right? Whether that was in Jimmy Lee, whether that was in MLK or they came to Phyllis Wheatley.
Yeah.
But what we always said, man, I'm gonna see you. I'm gonna get you next week.
Yeah.
Right now, man, I ain't going back there, man. I don't like them. If somebody drove by, shut the place up. That's why I talk about like those kids, the safety around that, and the mindset of what does it take for me to be great. I think it's kind of lost on them. And a lot of that has to do with the social media. They're looking at too many people's video edits. Well, I can make a video edit at 58, and y'all think I'm still a superstar. Anybody can do that, right? But and that's just the fun part of it. But I do think that Minnesota still has great players. I've always said that it's what we do after you leave high school or after you get to where you're going. Are you continually getting better? And Minnesota has demonstrated that, right? Even though I think our levels here, we have a track record of being a hidden gem in the Midwest, right? We produce great players. We produce pros.
True.
Right? But I tell people those are the players that have that hunger and that drive to get better every year, every summer.
Yeah.
But I still think we could have more. And so to me, that's the difference.
Well, I know usually at the end of this, we give our guests a chance to spread some wisdom. You spread a lot of it today, but maybe something we didn't ask you, or any advice you would give, particularly the young people out there. If there's anything that you want to say, in closing.
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say this and I have been on this mission for the last couple of years. I give a lot of homage to my family for the support that they gave. Again, they didn't understand basketball, but they really supported me and my family, and they really pushed academics because, again, we didn't have the money to put me through school. But they knew I had a desire, so I'm always going to give them homage. But then I honestly talk about y'all, to my mentors, to Ray, I came up in a community where the folks over me really blessed me. I couldn't be where I am today without those people. Right? Ray sitting over there, so I can say Ray. Right? I'd see him out somewhere. He always acknowledged me. He always kept me out of trouble. I always made sure nobody bothered me. I felt safe. That's huge, right? I think
Yeah.
I mentioned the Ronnie Bulls. I mean, there's so many of my elders. You know, J.R. Young
Mm-hmm.
does what we call a village hug,
Yep.
and I was able to get to those guys and tell them I couldn't have been who I am without you. Right? You know how young kid is. You get to the gym and the big guys there, you don't get a chance to play. They let me play. Now I don't always get a chance to shoot the ball, right? But I don't think people, older adults, understand how important that is. That an older guy would let me be on the floor with them. Like that was huge for me. Like, dang, I'm playing with the big boy. I remember running home and saying, man, Bronx, they let me play with them today. He's like, you didn't shoot the ball. I played though, right? You know, and sometimes they just throw the kid and you can't play, you can't play. Like, and I'm like, let him on the floor, right? You don't really know what that's going to do to that kid. Right? I had those kind of guys, right? And then I can test my skills against the Hickses or the Crows, right? Or all those guys that I competed against when I talked about the Russ, they helped me become the player I was. Cootie, I don't know if you remember him, passed away at Willard. I remember we let me come out and play with us, boy. You know, the Smiths, you know, the Rundos, the Tallies, and the Dennises. I was able as a young kid to get on the floor when other people weren't. Right. And so that's my second thing, just to really give homage to them, you know, to all those guys that paved the way before me and helped me hone my skills against them and with them to be the person I am. Because I couldn't have did it without them. And I just think young people should really acknowledge those elders. I say the same thing about all of my educators, you and your father, you know, what they did for us. You know, when the Star and Tribune wasn't publicizing us, y'all did, right? We felt like we were just as good as Bloomington or somebody else, but the Star and Tribune got them on the front page. Y'all had us on the front page, right? That's huge, right? Keith Davis, who passed away, he was one of the guys who used to take our information and shop it out to Street Smith and all these other publications at the time to help us get recognized. If it wasn't for Keith, maybe that, you know, that may not have happened, right? So I really do thank you all for the things that you did for me to be able to do the things I'm doing now. And then the second thing is, or the third thing is always be forever learner, right? That was one of the things I learned in sports, right? We don't know everything. You don't know everything,
Right.
right? And I say to say that somebody always has something to teach you. So be open to be taught, right? I remember when I first started coaching, there was well, you didn't make NBA, so you weren't good enough, right? That's your opinion, no big deal. You don't know my walk, you don't know what happened. But when I was able to take my team down to the Timberwolves, because back then I still knew the coaches and the players, and Dwayne Casey was coaching the Timberwolves, and the first thing he said, he walked in, he said, "Oh my God," he used to call me big guy. He called, you know, everybody there, but the big guy, "Oh my God, you made it to the game." I said, "Yeah." And at that time, I would park down there where the pros parked. I didn't have to, you know, because I thought I had it like that. And they did, right? But then when I got in there, he said to them, "Do you even know who you have as your coach?" He said, he quit the NBA. So he didn't get cut. Y'all don't know that. He quit, which is true. I was asked to play, and I told him no, both at the CBA and an NBA. And I don't want to try no more. I'm good. I'm done. And I remember I got the call from David Stern. "Do you want to play or not?" And back then, you know, David Stern placed you. I said, "No, man, I'm in politics. I'm good." Then when we walked behind the bench, the coaches and the players like, "Oh my God, Brett McNeal, damn, we were trying to figure out where you been." I said, "I'm in Minneapolis. I live." And they said, "Wait, hold up." And then they said, "Y'all know him?" He said, "Man, he's the best guard out here right now. He should be on the floor." And my kids saying, "Coach, you weren't lying. Like, you were really that good. Like, you." I said, "Well, there's the proof, right?" And so just because I didn't go to the NBA, don't mean I can't show you how to get there. Right? Just because I don't have that title, whatever that title is, don't mean I can't give you advice on how to get that title if that's what you want. Right? So trying to get young people to overlook titles and stereotypes. Somebody has something to offer you. They know what you don't know. So be willing to be taught. Be willing to be taught. You'd be surprised the value of mentorship. the
Mhm.
value of your network, irregardless of the title. I learned so much from janitors. In high school, boy, we know more about you than you think we do. Because we read your girlfriend's letters that they throw in the garbage, right? Crazy stuff like that. And I remember him saying that to me, like, what you talking about? He said, nah. And you got them girls fighting in the locker room, like, what you talking about? Oh, yeah. And they would show us the letters and stuff, right? You know, so I tell people they knew stuff about teachers.
Yeah.
Don't nobody pay attention to garbage. They're invisible. The helpers are always invisible. But you develop them strong relationships and they provide you information that could help you be good at what you do. And don't get stuck. Like I'm in athletics, but I had the benefit of being in HR and I had the benefit of being in politics. I know people that run their own business and I run my own business. So every music industry, all of the friends I know in the music industry, they always have something to offer you that you can take their best practice and put it into what you're doing. Don't get stuck in your lane. Right. That's what I would offer.
Well, Brett, thank you for spending time with us tonight. It was always a pleasure. I've watched you grow from being a player to being a successful young man and a father. You ain't a grandfather yet, are you?
Nope, not yet. Not
And
yet.
well, you've been a successful pillar in this community, and you deserve the flowers as you should get them. And I like the fact you talked about Coach Ingram. You know, he's definitely someone who has been overshadowed. Now we found out that he wanted to be overshadowed, and because he should be in the Hall of Fame, he should be much more recognized than he has been. But knowing him, I can understand that he rather just he did what he told to do.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when we pat ourselves on the back, sometimes you need some other pat on the back. So I'm glad that you mentioned Robin.
Yeah.
And if he's watching, I'm hoping that he recognized that, yeah, we knew how good you are. And we appreciate what he did in this community in high school basketball. And that should always be remembered. Well, thank you. This is Blacklight on Sports. My name is Charles Hallman. This is
Dr. Mitchell Palmer McDonald.
This is Brett McNeal. He's the assistant athletic director. That's right.
District level.
District level, Minneapolis Public Schools. We thank you for joining us. Please continue to read us in the paper and continue to watch us and join us next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.